The Origami King is basically what Paper Zelda would be. Hey everybody, Zelda Pro 064 here, and today I'll be giving my review of Paper Mario the Origami King. Just a disclaimer, I will be talking about non-spoiler stuff at the beginning of this video for those who want to hear my thoughts without getting spoiled. Towards the latter half, I will discuss spoilers for those who want to hear my thoughts on those. I will let you know when I get to the spoiler section. The first thing I know a lot of people are trying to find answers to is whether Paper Mario has truly returned to something of the glorious RPG series it used to be. Like I said before, this is basically Paper Zelda. Zelda is not an RPG. So unfortunately, no, this game has not returned to its RPG goodness. Does that make it a bad game? Does that even make it a bad Paper Mario game? Absolutely not. As you would expect from a Zelda game, Origami King is an action-adventure with puzzles, collectibles, and fun characters. I don't necessarily mean characters are uniquely designed, vary in race or in gender, because they really don't. You still deal with the same old enemies and Toad NPCs. However, the writing for characters in this game has vastly improved from the writing in Sticker Star and Color Splash. Even though there were a lot of the same kind of characters, the writing really fleshed out your partners, new characters like Ollie and Olivia, and even the Toad seemed to be more fleshed out. The world felt lived in, which is greatly helped by the fact that there is no world map this time around. You travel from area to area very seamlessly, and that alone gave the characters and settings way more liveliness. I also mentioned puzzles. There are a lot. First off, the battle system. Each battle requires you to line up enemies by either sliding or rotating the battlefield. When you solve the puzzle correctly, you can more easily defeat the enemies, usually on the first turn. Not gonna lie, there are some seriously tricky puzzles in some battles. There were some I was never able to solve, so I would just have to line some up in a weird way just so I wouldn't get hurt as bad. The puzzles in the battle range from either super easy to super difficult. I'll go further into the battle system in a bit though. There are also puzzles in the overworld. The most Zelda-like were some sliding ice block puzzles where you have to map out where to hit the ice block to get it into a certain area. There are also main story quests you have to go on where you have to get clues about the area and discover how to move on by solving the riddles or performing a certain action in an area. You would have to explore, talk to people, and do some weird and wacky things to be able to progress, and I loved that a lot. It once again made the world feel more lived in and connected. There's also a section where you're traveling a giant sea and you have a sea chart that looks and acts similar to the one in Wind Waker. You find all these islands and explore them, and it was a blast. There's even a section where you have to do these trials of courage, wisdom, and power. No joke. Again, Paper Zelda. Now for the dreaded battle system discussion. As I've said, this is not an RPG, and if you go into the game thinking it is, you will be very disappointed. The only reward you get for battling is coins. No, seriously, that's it. No leveling up or increasing your health or stats. And that is the biggest flaw this game has. It is pretty much pointless to battle, just like the last two games, and that is a huge bummer. However, you may find some joy in the battle system if you just want to solve some puzzles. A lot of the time, battles were forced, so it was more that the reward was getting to progress through the story, which felt kind of natural at times and frustrating at other times. Maybe you could find joy in the battle system if you really want to get a lot of coins. The coins are certainly needed to 100% the game, which I did. If you plan on 100%ing or collecting the treasures, you will need to battle, as collecting coins in the overworld just simply will not be enough. Since I was collecting everything but not battling as much, I actually found myself running out of coins quickly while collecting and buying items. I would have up to 20,000 coins at times and still just be needing more and more to get everything. So if you're wanting to collect things, by all means you should battle. If you just want to run through the game though, it is better to just avoid enemies whenever you can, which honestly really stinks. I will say that I enjoyed this system way more than Color Splash and Sticker Star, and was pleasantly surprised to say I enjoyed the new Accessory System. They're basically bootleg badges. They could increase your health, your battle time, and give you other kinds of perks outside of battles. There were even equipable items that were stronger than your regular hammer and boots that would break, like in Breath of the Wild. See, more Zelda stuff again. You would always have your regular boots and hammer, but if you would want to take out the stronger enemies later in the game, you would need to buy the upgrades every once in a while and keep them in your pouch. Boss battles, however, were completely different in this game. Instead of Mario in the center, it is the boss. You must create a path for Mario to get to the boss to do damage, and a lot of these fights were extremely creative and fun. There were a few that were frustrating, but for the most part the boss battles are a highlight of the game. They offer a really good challenge. As you probably saw in the trailer, most of the fights are against stationary, which I know a lot of people hate. I was honestly just happy to see that they weren't Koopalings or giant common enemies. They were unique and each had their own kind of personality. Stationary having personality is not something I would ever think would be a thing, but it is. And even though this is controversial, I loved the Legion of Stationary. But I wouldn't want them to return in the next game. Just keep them here, Nintendo, please. Thanks. There are also Paper Mache battles, where it is more real-time fighting. Honestly, these fights were really fun, and I would not have been sad if the game had these been the main fights instead of the battle ring system. It would have made more sense based on how the game is laid out. I wish there had been more of these fights. The final non-spoiler thing I want to talk about is the story. It is certainly more than Bowser kidnaps the princess, stop him. Ollie is capturing the Toads and Bowser's minions and turning them into origami. Mario must break the 5 streamers surrounding Peach's castle to confront Ollie. His sister Olivia joins you on your quest along with other partner characters. I hesitate to call them partners because they are mostly there for story purposes, and they only stay with you for the particular streamer you're in. That did not take away from them though. They sometimes help you in battle, one of them had somewhat of a field ability, and they really made the adventure more enjoyable than just Mario and Olivia traveling together like Huey and Kirsty did. There are surprising plot points that occur, but there were certain parts that kind of fell flat for me, but I will discuss those in the spoiler section. Before going into that section, my final verdict for those of you on the fence about this game: totally get it. It is a great time to have. In my opinion, it far surpasses the last 2 games, while somehow weirdly also being nowhere near the first 3. As I've said, it is the closest to Paper Zelda you can find. If you are a fan of Zelda and can look past the RPG-ness of this game, you will have a great time. It truly was an adventure worth experiencing. It took me around 25 hours or so to beat the main story and a bit over 40 hours to complete it 100%. Overall, I'd give the game a 7.5 out of 10. Time for the spoilers, so this is your time to leave if you don't want to get spoiled. 3, 2, 1. Okay. I can't believe Bobby died. One of the most shocking moments of the game for sure. I never expected a character in Paper Mario, especially a partner character, to die. It was dark, it was sad, it tugs at your heart. Like, it was almost Super Paper Mario levels of dark, and I loved it. But also, rest in peace, Bobby, my boy. It got really emotional, especially when Olivia got super sad and you had to cheer her up. If this had happened in Color Splash, some dumb joke would have just been said to just ruin the emotions of this moment. That was what I was expecting, and it didn't happen. Again, the writing of the characters in this game is A+. Okay, now to talk about the points of the story I didn't care for. For starters, Ollie was crafted by an origami craftsman who was, you guessed it, a toad. Oh, I was so mad when it was a toad. It felt so cheap. And then you find out that Ollie's motives for turning everyone into origami is that the craftsman scribbled a note on him and it made him angry. That's it. That was the motive. He didn't even bother to see what the note was. He was just like, am angry, am bad guy now. I hated to see such great characters get stupid motives and for the origami craftsman to be a toad. I mean, it could have been Merlin. Perfect excuse to bring him back. It could have been some other origami person who hailed from a distant origami land. I don't know, just something other than a toad. Okay, but other than that, the story was superior to the last 2 games, and I appreciated that a lot. My favorite boss fight was the scissors. It was so frightening because it could kill you in one hit, and it was so intense. And all this talk about suspense and dark things in this game made me remember, this game is dark. I mean, at one point, characters' faces are cut out and made to form a giant buzzy beetle fight. At another point, there are mindless toads roaming around because the hole puncher punched out their faces. Lots of disturbing body destruction of the toads and characters, which actually works really well with everything being paper, and I love seeing a darker side to Paper Mario again. Color Splash had a few dark moments, but it was nothing like this game. The last thing I want to talk about is the final boss fight. It was truly fun and exciting. It could have been a bit harder in my opinion, but I'm fine with how it was. Seeing Bowser turning into a giant origami to fight Ollie was also really cool. For 100%ing the game, you also get a separate ending. In the original, Olivia sacrifices herself to restore the world back to normal. Ollie and Olivia both basically die at the end. If you 100% the game and get to the end of the credits, a new scene plays with the craftsman putting a tiny Ollie and Olivia on his origami castle. It was a cute scene and it made me happy. Maybe not entirely worth 100%ing for, but it was still cute. I would probably recommend 100%ing it because I found it really enjoyable, minus a couple really frustrating parts, but otherwise it is a fun time collecting everything and filling up the museum. And that was my review of Paper Mario: The Origami King. Thanks everyone for watching, and we will see you guys in the next video.